Thank you, everybody. It's sort of like getting home. I live in the summers in Gloucester across the water. My hope is one day to just take a boat over. It's so much quicker. I have to first save up and buy the boat. Anyway, I do have a book coming out, American Gridlock, Why the Left and the Right Are Both Wrong. Common Sense 101 Solutions to Our Problems. I'll just mention the book because it touches on things that I will be saying today and have been saying for 20 years. The first goal of the book is to identify 5 problems that I think the nation simply has to solve. These are problems like bankruptcy for Medicare and Social Security, an obvious one. More immediately, what do we do about this lost decade where we could see permanent U6 unemployment of 17%? How do you deal with thugs like China in your bargaining? What do you do to avoid being taken advantage of repeatedly as we have? There's nothing wrong with China becoming a great country. It's great. But if you know trade theory, you'll know that when you go from being the 31st to the second largest economy on earth, and you have a huge success, your currency against, say, an old dollar would rise 300 to 400% conservatively. It seems to be a dirty little secret that so staggering has been the manipulation by China that its currency today is 47% lower than in 1990. That is not the way it's supposed to be. When 7 million people lose good jobs because of it, more than they would have had they played fair and square, which is all anybody wants, we'd be a lot less in trouble than we are. Another problem we have to face is the distribution of income and wealth. This is a very explosive topic. It is one that's completely misunderstood. Pure capitalism, by one of the most important theorems in the history of economic theory, in 1953 by the Nobel Kenneth Arrow, shows that true capitalist efficiency requires that everybody go to bed every night optimally hedged against all risks of every kind. Unfortunately, 95% of risks aren't hedged. You can't find somebody to underwrite one of the biggest risks in all of your own personal lives, the great risk that on your wedding night you prove impotent. Or that the value of your portfolio falls in half the day before you retire and annuitize it. Or about the value of your house. The fundamental theorem then says to the extent that we are not hedged, the resulting allocation is inefficient. The correct remedy is you use the income tax rate to serve as a surrogate for the fact that the lucky who win big and did not have insurance, so that they did not have to pay back big, will then end up much less rich than they would have had you had true capitalism. Now, I'm not going to go into this now. It's very disturbing to people. We'll talk a little bit about this when we talk about who's to blame for applying to the risks. The point I'm simply making is we cannot go on the way we are, where indeed a Warren Buffett pays half the tax rate of his receptionist. It's simply not appropriate. And neither the left adopts it, nor the right as a subject worth real discussion. The litmus test today is very simply, do you want the Bush tax cuts back or not? The right says we do not want to give them up. The left says we must give them up and tax the rich more. What absolute idiocy. Does anyone think that the tax rates before or after Bush have anything to do with what is correct or ideal or fair? No, they don't. But that's the level of shallowness of our discourse. And I think that's another problem with it. The second goal of the book is to show you how you can arrive at solutions to all these problems using higher order deductive logic. We live in a world of a screaming dialogue of the deaf. The left wing hires left wing think tanks to cherry pick new data to support its left wing views. The right wing does exactly the same. Induction, which is the process of using data to make inferences and arrive at policies, simply isn't very good. All important advances in science, not maybe all, but most, game theory, supply-demand theory, Newton's laws, Einstein's laws, Galois theory, whatever, came from very smart people laying down axioms in their bathtubs and deducing F equals ma. Data played a role in testing such a theory after it existed. John Nash, my Princeton teacher, the beautiful mind, pure mathematician, from 7 axioms deduced that there is only one solution to the bargaining problem, of what threats we make during bargaining and how we end up dividing the pie. If most people were asked to solve that problem and ask, is there a general function that solves it in all cases? You run 1,000 psychological experiments and do this and do that, you would have gotten absolutely nowhere. You would have thought of all the factors that would matter in bargaining, wouldn't you? There are none. The bargaining outcome depends upon one and only one way in which I differ from you, my relative risk aversion. The process of bargaining is risky. You could go home empty-handed if you don't strike a deal. Somebody more willing to press for their demands, more risk-prone, will bargain the other person down. 40 years later, I proved mathematically that this is equivalent to a related concept, that the person who is more needy gets bargained down by the person who is less needy. If you haven't eaten and you have 2 hungry kids at home, you will settle for a quarter of a pie. You can't go home empty-handed. The guy that's had a hot fudge sundae 5 minutes ago really doesn't care less about getting the pie and will bargain you down. This is a more intuitive source of support. The third and final goal of the book is that having shown that extremely difficult problems can be solved in a way where you follow from assumptions that your dog would accept to conclusions that are hopefully unique, as in Medicare, basically to contain the bankruptcy of the country. It turns out there is one and only one solution to the entire medical care system at an abstract level. In economic jargon, the supply curve has to move out faster than the demand curve. That's all you need. And every policy must be tested against that criterion. And if this is done, total expenditure, now 18% of GDP, will peak and then go down to 0, like the price of phone calls. If it isn't done, and under Obamacare, the demand curve is going out much faster than the supply curve, you are bankrupt completely. These are not opinions, these are theorems. So if you have a system where you think deeper and think better and you deduce solutions from first principles, what happens is, by the time you get to the conclusion, you all agree on it. Shut up, next topic. Remember in geometry, as children, you learn Euclid's axioms. 30 pages later, it is proven that all triangles of any kind have angles that sum to 180 degrees. There are no right-wing triangles where that's not true. Shut up, next topic. That's the kind of logic I was trained in, but it's very rare today. Very rare. Where today we think data dumps from the internet and spreadsheets are going to tell us anything. They don't. All that happens is you end up getting politicized induction. So the final goal of the book is to break the gridlock, break the dialogue of the deaf. But you can't do that unless you show first that there really are solutions to our biggest problems. The good news is that they are. The bad news is that the sun will burn out and we won't be around.